I'm Elizabeth. 3 weeks ago, at my wedding, the man I'd always called father shattered the illusion of a perfect family. In front of 150 guests, he hurled the tattered old passbook my mother had given me onto the cold marble floor, shouting, "Garbage belongs with garbage." The sound of that worn-out leather hitting the stone was like a slap across my face, a sound that's been echoing in my mind ever since. My father, Victor Thompson, is a man obsessed with status. He owns a small but well-known antique dealership in Boston. He's always flaunted his connections, driving a shiny Jaguar and collecting rare porcelain that he uses to impress his so-called important friends. To him, success is measured in material possessions and social standing. Growing up in our large Victorian house, I was constantly reminded that I didn't fit his mold of a successful heir. "If you were a boy, you could take over the business," he'd mutter whenever he was disappointed in me. I was his only child, yet it never seemed to be enough. My mother, Lily Thompson, was the complete opposite of my father. She worked part-time at a local thrift store, a job that my father ridiculed as a waste of time. "What do you even achieve there?" he'd sneer. "Sorting through other people's trash?" But my mother never said a word. She'd just smile softly, clean up after his outbursts, and retreat into the kitchen. For years, I thought she was weak, submissive. I was so blind to the strength that was hidden beneath her silence. I met my husband, Ethan Reed, during a field trip to a historical museum. I teach art history at a local high school, a career that my father has always dismissed as unprofitable. Ethan is an architect. When my clumsy self almost tripped over a display case, he caught my arm just in time. His hands were warm, and his smile was so kind that I felt my heart skip a beat. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. Those 2 years were filled with genuine conversations, where he actually cared about my ideas and my work. Ethan's family is a breath of fresh air. His father, Arthur Reed, runs a well-respected construction company, and his mother, Grace Reed, is a charitable foundation director. When I first met them, they were genuinely interested in my students and my passion for art history. "Teaching is a noble profession," Grace said, pouring me tea in their elegant suburban home. "You're shaping young minds." It was the first time someone had made me feel like my career was meaningful. When my father found out about Ethan's family, he suddenly became interested in my relationship. 3 days after meeting them, he called me into his study. "I'll pay for the whole wedding," he announced. I should have been suspicious. He'd never spent more than a few dollars on my birthday gifts before. But Ethan squeezed my hand and said, "Maybe he's changing." I wanted so desperately to believe him, so I agreed. Within a week, he'd booked an expensive country club, chosen the caterer, the florist, and even designed the invitations with gold embossing. The guest list was filled with his business associates, people I barely knew. The night before the invitations went out, my mother found me in the garden. "Elizabeth," she whispered, pressing a small, worn book into my hand. "I have a gift for you, but I'll give it on your wedding day. It's the most precious thing I have." I didn't understand then, but I held on to her words. On the morning of the wedding, as I sat in my childhood bedroom, I remembered a vague memory. I was 16, sick at home, when I heard a soft counting sound from my parents' room. I peeked in and saw my mother sitting on the bed, counting a small stack of bills with a notebook in her hand. When she saw me, she just said, "Grown-up things. Don't worry." I never asked again. The wedding venue was like a dream. White flowers decorated every corner, and a string quartet played in the background. But as I watched my father bossing around the vendors, I felt a sense of unease. When Ethan's family arrived in their simple car, my father put on a fake smile and greeted them with a voice I'd never heard from him before. Meanwhile, my mother stood alone, wearing the dress my father had picked for her, looking out of place. The ceremony was beautiful. Standing at the altar with Ethan, saying "I do," was the most real moment of the day. But during the reception, my father got drunk. He boasted to Arthur Reed about his business's success, numbers that I knew were inflated. I could see the skepticism in Arthur's eyes. Then came the time for family gifts. My father took the stage first, presenting a check for $30,000, which I knew he'd borrowed. He was trying so hard to impress Arthur. Next, Arthur gave Ethan and me the keys to a charming cottage in the countryside. It was a gift from his grandmother. I saw my father's face turn sour as he realized his gift was overshadowed. Then it was my mother's turn. She walked quietly to the front, holding the old passbook. "Elizabeth, this is my gift to you. It's everything I've saved. I want you to have the freedom I never had," she said softly. I took the passbook, and I could hear the whispers from the guests. "A savings book? That's it." Before I could say anything, my father exploded. "What is this garbage?" he roared, grabbing the passbook from my hands and throwing it on the floor. 30 years of marriage, and this is all you can offer?" My mother just stood there, tears streaming down her face, silent as always. I felt something inside me snap. Ethan wanted to confront my father, but I stopped him. I knew that's what my father wanted, a chance to play the victim. I walked over to the passbook, picked it up gently, and then walked to my mother. "Thank you, Mom. This is the most precious gift I've ever received," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. Then I turned to Ethan and said, "We're leaving." That night, we went to the cottage. I sat on the porch, holding the passbook, wondering what my mother meant by freedom. The next morning, I received multiple angry voicemails from my father, threatening to cut me out of his will. But my mother's text was different. "Go to First National Bank. Ask for Mr. Brown. He'll explain everything," it said. We went to the bank. When I showed the passbook to the teller, her face turned pale. She quickly disappeared and came back with a silver-haired man, Mr. Brown, the branch manager. He led us to his private office and told me that this passbook was the key to a trust account that my mother had established 25 years ago. The current balance was $1. 8 million. My mother had inherited $150,000 from her grandmother. She'd invested it wisely, adding small amounts from her part-time job and a portion of the household money over the years. She'd been coming to the bank every year on my birthday to check on the account. Mr. Brown also gave me a letter from my mother. In the letter, she said she'd stayed in the marriage for me, to give me a stable home. But she'd always been preparing for this moment, so I could have the freedom to live my life on my own terms. 1 week after the wedding, my mother decided to leave. She told my father she was filing for divorce. He laughed at her, saying she had nothing. But she calmly replied that she'd had a legal separation agreement for 20 years and had her own assets. His face turned red with anger, but for the first time, I saw my mother wasn't afraid. My father called me, accusing me of turning my mother against him. I told him that he'd had 30 years to treat her right, but had chosen not to. I didn't need his money or his approval anymore. 2 weeks later, Arthur and Grace came for dinner. My father showed up uninvited, trying to apologize to Arthur for the wedding fiasco, but his real intention was to salvage a potential business deal. Arthur saw through him and told him that he didn't do business with men who treated their families badly. My father left in humiliation. In the following months, my father's business faced setbacks as the story of the wedding spread through the local business community. Deals he'd been working on fell through. I didn't take pleasure in his downfall. I was just tired of the lies and the manipulation. My mother, on the other hand, blossomed. She cut her hair, painted her new apartment bright colors, and started volunteering at an art gallery. She even began writing a book about her experiences, hoping to inspire other women. I decided to keep teaching. I used a part of the money to set up an art scholarship fund, the Lily Thompson Art Scholarship, to help young students pursue their dreams. Ethan expanded his architecture practice to include more community projects. 3 years have passed since then. I'm sitting in our cottage, watching our daughter, Lucy, play in the garden. My mother is here, too, helping her with a flower pressing project. She published her book last year, and although it didn't become a bestseller, it received many heartfelt letters from readers. I still have the passbook framed on the wall. It's not about the money. It represents my mother's 25 years of love, patience, and silent sacrifice. It taught me that real love is not about grand gestures, but about the quiet, consistent efforts to build a better future for the ones you love. And the people who try to make you feel small only have power as long as you let them. My father was wrong. The real garbage was his shallow view of love and success.